Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for another episode of All Over the Map. As we join the All Over the Map family and follow them on their journey to find their forever home. And today, well, they've taken a giant leap. They've left the planet. They've joined William Shatner somewhere out in outer space here today. Welcome, Michael and Caitlin Domner here.
Hey, we are in the Galapagos today, so left the mainland.
We apologize. Apparently the internet here is as slow as the land tortoises. So we'll see how it goes.
There you go. Well, I don't know if everybody's picking up on the reference, but this morning, William Shatner, the 90-year-old William Shatner, was shot into space, the oldest person ever to go up and into suborbital space and come back down. And I kind of feel that you two are doing the same thing here. This morning, you left the mainland. You've been connected to North America and then through the land bridge of Central America and down into South America, but it's all been kind of on the mainland. Now you leapt into the middle of nowhere in the Galapagos Islands, and it feels like flying into space to me. You're in outer space right now, as far as I'm concerned.
It really was. It was about a 2.5-hour flight from Quito all the way out to the Galapagos Islands. So we've done the Hawaii flight before. It wasn't quite that far out, but it was definitely I don't even know, maybe 1,000 miles plus out here into the middle of the ocean. And it's incredible. It feels very foreign. It feels kind of like we've left the planet. I mean, there's giant tortoises and iguanas that are half the size of Bradley. And it feels very kind of foreign for sure.
Very otherworldly. This is a bucket list for so many of us to go out to the Galapagos Islands. How much farther is Easter Island? That's a whole nother leap of faith? Are you way out there somewhere?
Yeah, I think that's about another 2,000 miles south. That's that one's another quite a ways out there.
And so you get to the Galapagos Islands and you land on a little is it like a real airline or is it just a little plane that flies out there?
Yeah, so it's a normal airline, but it lands on kind of a little desert island called Baltra. And when we landed, Cora looked around and she's like, this is not what I expected. This looks like home because we grew up in the Mojave Desert. Yeah. And there's huge Nopalito cactuses and red rock and sagebrush, and it's just dry. It looks like you landed in Australia or the Mojave Desert. And then there's the ocean, this gorgeous blue turquoise water right at the edge. And Cora loves the ocean and she loves desert, but she never thought she would get both of them together. So we're like, hey, Galapagos, this is your place, Cora. Yeah. Congratulations, you found it.
This was the first time that the kids had the experience of getting off of a plane onto like the steps that go down right on the tarmac. Yeah. So that was funny. They looked at this kind of steps that rolled up to it and they're like, is this for real right now?
Did the plane break?
Oh my goodness. And that's every plane I took when I was a little boy here. We didn't have tubes that came out and you just walked in an enclosed space. You had to walk down the steps. Yeah, exactly. All right, so the Galapagos Islands, give us a little quick history here. You're the history buff for the 5 people listening who haven't heard of the Galapagos Islands. This is where Charles Darwin sailed on the HMS Beagle, and he famously pondered and came up with this idea of evolution after watching the strange animals that had evolved out there. Talk about this. What drew you out there, and give us a little history background here.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was pretty deserted. They're relatively young. They're only 4 million years old. It takes about 1 million years for a foot of soil to develop. So most of the even newer islands, there's only like a foot or two of soil on these islands. So we've been talking to the kids about how geology works, which is really fun. Right. But in terms of newer history, yes, they found these islands and the Spanish had taken over the areas. Actually, the Incans took over Ecuador in like the 14th century or the 15th century. And then about 100 years later, the Spanish came in and took over the Incas. Everybody was taking over everybody.
And now the Domners have come in and taken over Galapagos for themselves here. So you're the newest conquistadores. Right, exactly.
The English and I think it was the Dutch. I don't know. Maybe it's the French. Anyway, somebody used these islands as pirate coves and whaling stuff.
They actually would, the whaling ships would use these islands specifically because of the giant tortoises. So the sailors could eat the tortoises. They would not kill the tortoises. They would flip them over, put them down in the hold, and the tortoise could live for up to 100 days like that.
Wow.
Without food or water. So they would literally go for months and then still have fresh tortoise meat. So that was one of the reasons why it was so big for the whalers, but then also why the giant land tortoises are so endangered now is just because they were used so prolifically for the sailors as provisions as they were sailing across these wide expanses of ocean.
I was just going to say, I knew you guys would know all this stuff.
We're teaching the kids the history as we go, so we have to learn it about 5 minutes before we teach them. But then Charles Darwin arrived, and he was only here for about a month. And it was really his finches. They call them Darwin's finches. There's like 13 varieties, but he used that as one of the primary pieces of evidence to support his theory of evolution.
All of these different finches have different shaped beaks depending on what they eat and what's around them, as well as different colors based on where they're at. It's really fascinating.
So it's survival of the fittest, which is essentially that a species adapts to its environment, because the ones that come out and are a little different than the others, they thrive and the others die. You're kind of living this survival of the fittest here. Are you surviving these journeys? Or check us in with your mental state these days and your family state. How you guys?
There's some days that we survive and some days that we thrive.
Okay.
We kind of take it day by day. We had a conversation about this yesterday. Wow, it was just yesterday while we were on Isabella Island. And Caitlin and I were riding bikes. So we rented a couple bicycles, and we were going to the Wall of Tears, which was built by a penal colony in the 50s and 60s. Wow. And we were riding the bicycles out there, and then we climbed to what we thought was the top of this little hill. We were like, okay, we're going to go see this mirador, overlook the ocean. Oh, no, there's another hill above that. So we climbed to the second one. Oh, no, there's a third hill above that we have to go to. By this time, we're like exhausted and dehydrated. And we just kind of reaffirmed that decision that, you know what, it really is like the decisions that we make in our minds that dictate where we go in life and even in the moment, right? So we're going to make it to the top of this hill, damn it. That was our decision. No matter what it's going to take, we're going to get there. So it was a pretty interesting day. I'll let Caitlin expound on it a little bit more. But
I don't know that you want me to, because I have not ridden a bike in probably 6 months. My tailbone is still sore, and it's desert. So we were talking about the different ecosystems. So the coastland has the mangroves, which we discussed on a previous one. So it's still green. Then immediately after that is this wasteland desert of cactus and these ghostly Palo Santo trees. And then you go a little bit further and you get into the highlands, and it's
basically jungle.
It's rainforest practically. It's cold and wet all the time, because wherever there's a volcano, the clouds form. And we never saw the tops of any of the volcanoes on Isabella.
On Isabella, which has, I think, 5 or 6 different volcanoes, every single one of the tops of them are always covered by clouds. At least the 4 days that we were there.
That's true. And so you go up, and it's all of the botany changes, the animals change, the climate changes, everything. It's really interesting. But we were riding bikes in the hot desert part of it. So we're pedaling like mad through sand, walking my bike through the sand, and then up these mountain cliffs. And I was just like, I hate biking. I hate hills. I hate the desert. I really hate biking up hills in the desert. I was like, it was a good thing my kids were not there, because I was not in a place where I could spin it and make it sound wonderful and fantastic.
But you're in the Galapagos. You're in the Galapagos Island. Everything has to be paradise.
Exactly.
I was trying to tell her this is paradise, hon, but she wasn't having it.
I was like, at least there's no mosquitoes. That was the one thing I could hold on to.
It reminds me of when you were in Belize and you go out to another World Heritage Site, one of these handful of places on the planet that, are protected, and everybody's got to go there. And we've seen countless specials about it, like the Galapagos Islands. And in that case, your kids weren't having it. riding 2.5 hours to get out here. And now you're saying, I'm not riding around on a bike and enjoying this and getting to the top of the hill here. Maybe it's something about these bucket list places that just don't live up to the hype or just don't fit your personality here. I don't know.
Yeah, I think as Michael said, it was just an act of willpower. Like we said, we were going to the Wall of Tears, so we were going to make it to the Wall of Tears. And then we decided we were going to go to the top of the Mirador. So we decided we were going to the top of the Mirador. But I'm like, but you can't make me like it.
You can't make me like it, damn it here. What's it feel like? Is there any guilt when you're... I remember the one time we talked about this quickly, but when I was in Hawaii, I've only been to Hawaii once, and it was a horrible trip. And I got sick and everything was wrong. Everything was just, from start to finish, everything just seemed to go bad. You know, we're on Maui and we're supposed to go up to the Hana Trail, and it's dry as a desert and there's no waterfalls, there's no water happening. All the things that we were promised, nothing's happening. Whole trip was like that. And I felt guilty because I'd spent a ton of money. I know I'm supposed to be enjoying this. This is supposed to be a wonderful deal.
Yeah, I don't know if it's guilt when I don't like something. It's more like frustration because I am supposed to be loving this. And honestly, when we get to the top, right, that's where the payoff comes because you're surrounded on three sides by gorgeous blue water and there's breeze. And so we took some time to just sit and enjoy it. And then pedaling back down the mountain is fantastic. I had so much fun biking downhill the rest of the way home. So I feel like it's just reminding yourself that sometimes you have to look a little harder. You have to work a little harder to find the rewards in travel.
Sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to, right? Like even if you don't want to climb the mountain, like it's going to be beautiful at the top. It's going to be beautiful riding the bicycle back down. So reminding yourself that not everything is sunshine and rainbows. Like sometimes you have to do the hard things that you may not choose to in order to see the beautiful things. And yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking online because we had the chance to, just a little aside here on OC Talk Radio, we actually had a chance to interview William Shatner a couple of weeks ago because he's a big e-bike rider and we do a show for Pedigo e-bikes here. So somehow there's some connection here. You're not getting into riding bikes. Maybe if there was an e-bike there giving a little boost, maybe that would have been a little easier or something here.
Would have been fantastic.
But I'm looking online as we're talking here, these things are popping up. And, this 90-year-old man just went into space here. And they're saying he's very emotional about this. The guy who was the Star Trek captain actually went in real life out into space here. You guys were pretending to be travelers up to this point. Now you're really doing it. It's one thing to drive south into Mexico and say, yeah, isn't this fun? Maybe even a little further into Central America starts to get a little more exotic. But right now, you're out there. You've left the planet. You've left the Earth, and you're out in really another world out there. Is it emotional? Is it just another day at the beach? Because you keep saying this isn't a trip. This is your life. What's the day in the life of the Domers look like today?
Probably 3 or 4 days a week. We have to just button down and do some schoolwork and some work. So Caitlin and I have to get a little bit of work done, and the kids have to do their more structured schoolwork. So reading, writing, arithmetic, the 3 R's. And and really, I feel like sometimes those days are hard too, because we're in these magnificent, beautiful places, and we just have to take time to live our life like we're not in a beautiful place.
Exactly. That's what I was getting at. How do you have a normal day?
Stop and get on calls and do work and let the kids do school.
How do you have a normal day in paradise? Because you're only going to be there, for a week or for a few days or something?
It really comes down to scheduling too. So like today, the first half of our day is work, schoolwork. The second half of the day, we're going to go to the Charles Darwin Research Center. So I feel like it's a little bit of scheduling. So we know okay, we're still, today's going to be a good day. We're going to go learn some stuff hands-on as opposed to just from the books that we're doing here at the house. But yeah, I think that it's also that shift. I know we've talked a little bit about kind of a mindset shift of we're not vacationing, this is our life and this is how we're living. We did that. We kind of felt that way in Antigua while we were there. We kind of looked at it and we were like, we didn't do any of the big things in Antigua that we thought we were going to do when we were here, right? We were there for 10 days, but it was more of a kind of just settle down, do our schoolwork, do our homework, get everything done that we need to get done. And there was a little bit of that, guilt that you called it. There was kind of that like, oh my gosh, like the kids didn't get to go see this volcano that we wanted to go climb or go see these ruins that we wanted to go walk through. And so there's a little bit of that, but at the same time, realizing that we're going to be doing this for the next 3 years. And if we miss one volcano, like it's not.
There's another one coming.
We've got plenty more volcanoes.
Yeah. Well,
well, one of our biggest decisions as we're looking forward, the plan had been to do Peru, then Brazil, then Uruguay, then Argentina, then our Antarctica trip. And we've actually decided to cut all that and just go straight to Chile and spend the rest of the time in Chile. And one of our big decisions was like Peru, Machu Picchu, like, how are you going to cut that out of your trip? And I'm like, well, it's actually easiest for us to cut something that huge and bucket list worthy because we know that we'll come back for it, right? We may not have come back for Ecuador, except for the Galapagos, right? But we loved Ecuador. And so it's actually, I think, better for us to hit the countries that are less exciting now. And then we know that we'll bring the kids back and do a month in Peru and we'll do Machu Picchu and all the Incan exploration. So it's just kind of trying to figure out how do we balance, we have to travel now with, we're going to be traveling the rest of our lives in some capacity and just being strategic about which ones we say yes to on them at the moment and which ones we save for later.
And part of that too that comes into play is of course COVID and the pandemic.
Right.
So like Peru right now, I don't know if it's true, but we heard from a couple travelers that they were requiring 2 masks and a face shield, like if you're out in public, even for kids over the age of 2. And we're like, there's no way we're going to make our kids wear 2 face masks and a face shield the whole time when we're in Peru. So I mean the actual logistics of it plays into it too.
Was closed.
Argentina was still completely closed when I was booking tickets. So it's just who's going to let us in? Where can we go? In addition to the other things that Caitlin said there.
But let's talk about one more thing and then we'll get off this point here, which is part of what makes you want to do everything when you go somewhere, to the Grand Canyon, to the top of a mountain, to the Galapagos, is the fear or the feeling, I will probably never come back here again. Is there an impulse to see it all, or are you just taking a different approach to this adventure?
I think we're trying to take a different approach that we don't have to see it all. On one hand, on the other hand, Caitlin just said, we're going to be traveling the rest of our lives in some capacity or another, whether it's traveling straight like we are right now as a lifestyle, or whether it's taking a month a year and going and traveling places. We love to travel enough that we know that that's going to be a part of our life. So I don't know if it's so much the fear of like, I'll never make it back here, as much as like maybe like a fear of missing out, right? Like while we're here, like I don't want to miss it. Like just that kind of, not wanting to miss something that's big, I think is a big piece of it.
Well, let's check in with the progress. So the question of the day is always, is this the one? I can't imagine living in the Galapagos. How many people live in the Galapagos? Can't be a lot of people that live there.
Yeah, actually, they've completely shut down any immigration to the Galapagos Islands, specifically because they don't want the population to grow. Basically, there would be a lot of mainland Ecuadorians who would want to move here because the tourism is so big. Right. There's a lot of money in the tourism here. So they've actually completely shut down immigration. You can't buy property in the Galapagos, and you can only spend a maximum, I think it was 60 days a year as a tourist in the Galapagos. They have like specific Galapagos cards that you have to have with you when you're traveling to the Galapagos, and they manage the population and the tourist population very closely here in the Galapagos. So that was interesting. As far as Ecuador, I don't think that Ecuador is a place where we would live. It's kind of nice because they have the US dollar as their currency. So that's one, it just kind of makes it simple. It's easy to do transactions and kind of figure that out. And there are a lot of beautiful places here in Ecuador. I don't know. How are you feeling, Caitlin?
Yeah, I think we only had like 4 days in Quito. We're going back for another week because I think we were staying in a rough part of the town and we didn't really get a sense for Ecuador itself. So we're going back for a week just in Quito to do some day trips and see, because it has the mountains, the Andes Mountains, all the way down to the beach. And there's plenty of farmland in between. It's known for roses and seafood and like all kinds of amazing things that you can grow there. So I think we'll probably give Ecuador a second chance when we're back there. and not in this, or sorry, in Quito. And then we're doing a week stay at a eco lodge on the Amazon River, or like one of the tributaries heading towards the Amazon.
Oh my goodness.
So we'll be doing kind of another jungle experience on the other side. So we'll get a sense of Quito's beaches, highlands, and jungle. And then I think we might have a better sense of whether or not this is a good place for us to stay. But the Galapagos isn't even an option because of its restrictions.
So this really is along the way while you're looking for your forever home. This really wasn't a consideration. This is just got to see it because we're going near it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But in Chile, we've actually reached out to a couple of real estate agents specifically to look for property down there.
Yeah, I don't know that I could ever live in like an island kind of a setting. It's just a very different culture, I feel like, than I'm used to.
Yes.
It's incredibly laid back. Everything's on island time, if you know what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know that I could see myself living on an island long term. But yeah.
And that's an interesting question. Let's explore that for a second, because as you choose, you haven't really sort of come up with a criteria list yet. Maybe that's one of them. Maybe islands are for us or islands aren't for us. I know people that lived in Hawaii and said it's paradise, but I had to get off. Because you get island fever. You just go round and round and round and round the same space over and over again, and there's a feeling of being trapped.
Exactly.
Whereas some people love it because it feels like you're isolated. You're away from everything else. You're in a special spot. So I don't know. Do you have to be connected to the world, or would you ever consider living on a remote island somewhere?
No, I think for us, probably we would be more the island fever kind of people. We're like, we've explored the entire island 3 times and we've only been here a week. I also think the other thing is that we talked about the network and you're plugged into the network, but the island is even more so. So the entire island of Isabela only has 2,000 people, 2,500 people. So literally everybody knows everybody else, and they're all probably related in some direction.
Right.
I don't know that we would ever get past being an outsider if we ended up. It would probably take 2 or 3 generations for even our kids or our grandkids to feel like they were islanders.
Interesting.
And that's just, that's a hard thing to know that you were always going to be outside of the community, even when you've lived there for 20 years.
So a couple months into the journey, we've decided, at least at this point, maybe we can scratch islands off the list. Wherever we're going to end up, it's probably not going to be on an island.
I think we might have some vacation homes and islands, but
go visit an island, but live there for all day long, day after day after day. Interesting. It is a different lifestyle. There's no question. I've been to many islands in the Caribbean and other places here, and it's always that dual feeling of it's slow and it's wonderful and it's idyllic and it's paradise. What time does the plane leave? What time can I go? All right. Well, how long are you there for? Just a couple days, a week? How long do you spend in paradise?
Yeah, we're here on Isla Santa Cruz for about another 4 days. And then we go back to Quito. Like Caitlin said, we'll be in Quito for a week. And then after that, we're going to the Amazon jungle, which will be another exciting time. I don't know that we'll have any connection for that week. We might have to cancel our podcast.
We never know.
But the Amazon jungle is going to be exciting.
We never know. You know, my grandson forced me to watch Jungle Cruise, the new movie with The Rock in it that's based on the Disney ride, Disneyland. And, he just thinks that's the most exotic thing you've ever seen in the world. Snakes hanging out of the tree and, strange.
We just watched that in Spanish the other day on one of our rides.
So you're going to go live the Jungle Cruise. You're going to take a Jungle Cruise. Well, at some point, you've kind of got these bucket lists lined up. You've done Galapagos, you're going to do a jungle, and eventually we know you're headed down to Antarctica, another spectacular bucket list thing. I wonder if anywhere along the way, these Disneyland adventures become your forever home. That would be wild if you choose to live in the middle of upriver in the Amazon at the South Pole or something like that.
We're trying to keep an open mind for it, for sure.
All right. Well, let's take us out here. Give us your summary. Today must feel more like a vacation than a forever day. I know you're trying to do work and you're trying to do stuff, but it's hard for me to believe that this is just another normal day and we're going to get in a car and drive a little further and drive a little further. This must feel like going into outer space, something very different. But I'm putting words in your mouth. You tell me.
No, I think you're right. I think it's realizing that this is outside of the normal and learning to appreciate everything in the moment. I think that's my takeaway recently is if there's something that's uncomfortable in the moment, like riding my bicycle through the desert, right? It's instinctual for me to say, okay, but then when I get back, I can take a cold shower.
Right.
Or after that, I can eat lunch, and I can always plan for the future. And that brings me hope and comfort in the moment. But as I was riding my bike, the thing that I just came back to is like, how can I enjoy this moment as it is right now? And just forcing myself to stay present for the comfort and the discomfort, because that's what life is. It's a combination of pain and joy and pleasure. And it's all of these different things. And it's a mixed pot on purpose. And you're supposed to drink it all down, not just pick out your favorite letters from the alphabet soup. And really just, that's kind of my takeaway is there's going to be things that are fantastic and I will want to remember them forever. And there are going to be things that I'm already wishing I could forget, but being present for them is the most important thing. And so that's what I'm really working on is kind of my spiritual this week is just how can I enjoy this moment exactly as it is without trying to change it?
Well, you just gave me the new metaphor to carry through this whole thing. Life is alphabet soup, and you can't just pick out the letters you like. And maybe the other part of that is there's an endless combination of words that you can create out of that bowl of soup. Pain,
Absolutely.
joy. Depending on how you arrange the letters, it's the same bowl of soup. It can read a total different way. Maybe that's what you're learning to do here, to read the bowl, to rearrange the letters so it comes out a different way here each time. All right.
I love that.
Fascinating idea here. All right. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to ride along. So back next time, maybe, folks, maybe you'll hear them as they go to the Amazon, or maybe we'll have to wait a week to hear. I'm guessing they're going to find a way, even if they have to climb a telephone pole. I don't have telephone poles in the Amazon. I don't know, whatever it is. They're going to drum beats. They're going to send, I'm going to go back to every bad 40s movie about living in the jungle. There's drums beating through. It must be drums all the time everywhere, sending signals over the horizon here.
We'll have to find a good a new entry music for our Amazon jungle one.
Yes, exactly. I'll have to come up with something there. All right. Thanks for joining us here. It's a fascinating ride as we ride with the Domner family. Not just for a week, not just for a little while, maybe for the rest of their life. As they travel the world with their family in search of their forever home. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, octalkradio.net. Streaming live from the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.